Okay, we will start. Oh. Om. Om. Badram karne bishunuyama devaha. Badram pashyemakshabiryajatraha. Sthirairangai tuštuvagum sastanubihi. Vyashema devahitam yadayuhu. Swasti na Indro Vriddashavaha. Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha. Swasti Nastarkshyo Arishtanemihi. Swasti no Brihaspatirdadatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. So in the last class, we saw the 7th mantra. And as I was saying, the 7th, 8th and 9th mantras are very important, because that sets the stage for the remaining portion of the Mundakopanishad. That's one reason. The second reason is that it talks about the Jagat Srishti, the creation process, which is a core element of understanding Brahma Vidya. So that is also a reason why it is very important. And thirdly, it presents a set of ideas which are going to be either expanded or further added upon. So therefore, these mantras 7, 8 and 9 in the first Mundaka's first Adhyaya are very critical, and it's also important because in a way it is leading to an answer to the question that Shaunaka asked, Kasmin Vijnate Bhagavan Sarvamidam Vijnatam Bhavati. What is that primordial source of knowledge? By knowing that, we will actually know everything. So it is also answering that. So in many ways, these mantras 7, 8, 9 are very important. And we saw the first line of mantra 7 alone. I think we saw even a little bit of the second line. Anyway, we'll go to it. Now, talking of this creation process, see, our on all the Upanishads, this would have been discussed. Particularly the primary Upanishads, the Dasha Upanishad, I mean, not all the 10, but certainly 7, 8 of them in some ways. What you will find is this creation process is described, because that is the only way we touch that ultimate Brahman. That's part of the Brahma Vidya anyway. But the only issue is, see, this trying to explain how the universe came has been a daunting task for modern day scientists, which we are all aware. You know, they talk of black hole, they talk of Big Bang, so many things they are saying. It is genuinely a very complex issue. It's not going to be, if you take a small, a simple automobile manufacturer, he will have 10,000 components which goes into an automobile. And there would have been a very complex process of trying to um, decide how to get those components, how to fix the shape and size and specs and materials, so many things. And you'll have voluminous 10,000, 20,000 copies of drawings. Even for a small, one single item called a passenger car, if this is the complexity, we are now talking about how the universe is created. So obviously it is going to be quite a daunting task, and that's what anyway modern science is also grappling with. So what the Upanishads has done is, not all Upanishads said the same thing. That is the democracy of education and knowledge that Sanatana Dharma always boasted. Everybody had a license to reflect their ideas in their own way. So what happened is these Upanishads, every one of them came up. There were some commonalities, of course, but the level of detailing, what needs to be told, how it needs to be told are all different. So a collective reading of all these Upanishads, particularly with respect to the creation process, might give us some idea, because it's quite a complex thing to describe. Then if you look at all Puranas, the Puranas have Panchalakshana, and one of them is also about this Jagat Srishti. That's a requirement of the Puranas, because somehow we have realized that it's so complex, so you need a more number of views, more number of perspectives on the same subject. So one should not think it is all confusing. Definitely they are not contradicting. I don't think they are confusing also. So one can read, for example, the third book of Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, has 30 chapters related to 35 chapters on just this creation process. It presents it in a particular way. So you'll find it in all the Puranas also. Now, Itihasas also some take it up. If you may recall, when we were doing the Valmiki Ramayanam in Aranyakanda, when Jatayu was lying after putting a brave fight against Ravana, it was hurt and lying down. And when Rama and Lakshmana happened to meet Jatayu, we saw one sargai where Rama and Lakshmana asked, "Who are you?" And then Jatayu turn asked, "Who are you?" And then they said, "We are Dasharatha Putras," and so on. So when Jatayu replied, "I am Vinita's son," that time there is a description of a creation process there. So this has been attempted. Point I'm making is, since it is very complex, different scriptures, our repository makes, and not all of them say the same thing. All have looked at it from different lenses and have given different ideas of their understanding of what this creation is all about. So we are going to see those mantras in Mundakopanishad as to how it is actually articulating. So last week we saw this mantra. Yato nana visrijate grinnate cha yata pritivyam oshadaya sambhavanti yata sata purushat keshalomani tataksharat sambhavati vishwam. So we saw there are three analogies, if you may quickly recall. Yataha urnanabihi srijate grinnate cha, how the spider throws out the weaves the web and then sometimes withdraws it also. That is one first example. Prithivyam Oshadaya, from the same earth you get different Oshadi Vanaspataya. So that is the second example. These two we saw. Yata Sataha Purushat, a living, a live Manushya. uh, from that person, Kesha Lomani, the hairs grow. Tata Aksharat Sambhavatihi Vishwam. This is what we saw. The first line we saw, if you remember, the first analogy was spider weaves the web out of itself, withdraws the web unto itself. So spider is both the Nimitta Karanam and the Upadana Karanam. It is not looking for raw material elsewhere. It brings everything from within. So it basically said there is a single source for the entire creation process, and creation and destruction, because that's what the spider is doing. Creation and destruction process belongs to the same source. So it is a certain kind of manifestation and unmanifestation. So this is the first analogy we saw. The second analogy we saw was Yata Prithivyam Oshadeyaha Sambhavanti. How the plant kingdom is shooting out of the earth. So essentially the idea that is coming through this analogy is earth is the support for very different varieties of trees and herbs. It's a huge variety, but they all come from the earth. So what it is trying to point to us is, in the same way, universe in a sense shoots out of the Brahman only, and Brahman sustains, beholds, and supports the entire universe of beings. Whatever is the variety, they are all supported and held, beheld, and all that. So that is what we need to infer from this analogy. So we saw up to this much last class. Now there is a question. How about all these are living objects? How about the inanimate objects such as rocks and stones, etc., in the creation? In other words, Jada Padartha, not just Chit Padartha. What about Jada Padarthas? So in order to answer that question comes the third analogy. So the third analogy, which we didn't see last class, we will see it and complete this mantra. It says, Yata Sataha Purushat Kesha Lomani. So Sat Purusha, that is a very important, not Asat Purusha. Hairs don't grow out of a dead person, from a dead body. The hair grows from a person who is living, alive. That's why we go and have a haircut every now and then. Some of us, like me, may not need haircut because already most of the hair is gone. So that's okay. So anyway, so Yata Sataha Purushat Kesha Lomani. Here there are two words, Kesha and Loma. First of all, the analogy is saying hairs grow from the head and the body. And also the nails. The nails is not written here explicitly. The nakaha also, the nails in our body, the hands, upper limbs, and the lower limbs, and so on. So this word Kesha and Loma both means hair. It's a technical word. Kesha means that which is in the head, and Loma is which is in all other parts of the body. So basically, Kesha Lomani says whatever hair that grows out of a living person is what is indicated, and one can include the nails also. Nails also grow. That also can be indicated. So what is the analogy here? Basically, hair and nails are Jada Padartha. They are not Chit. Because if you cut it, then you have cut yourself. Or you should pain, it should give you, you should create some kind of a thing in you. That's not the case. If you gently remove it, you don't even feel it, and then it keeps growing also. So, as we may remember, this is what Narasimha Avatara is all about. Because Hiranyakashipu said, neither the living nor the dead, neither in the morning nor in the evening, neither inside a building nor outside a building, neither a person nor an animal, like that. So in that's why he used his naka, with which he tore. Because the naka is neither a living body nor a non-living body. It is living because it is growing. It is not living because when you cut it, nothing happens. So that is the example taken here. So essentially what this analogy is saying is inanimate objects or insentient objects, if you have to use a word like that. Jada padarthaha can also emanate out of chit padartha. So a conscious being can also create, a sentient being can also create insentient elements as much as what we are doing. The Naka is become insentient. The hair has become insentient, but we are sentient. So out of a chit padartha, jada padartha can also come. In other words, what this analogy is also saying is, in a creation process, a lot of opposite things can also be created. Lot of opposing things can also be created. I mean, I keep giving this example quite often, because I seem to like this example, which I read somewhere. You know, hydrogen is combustible, oxygen aids combustion, but when you put hydrogen and oxygen, it becomes water, which will put off combustion. So this is the nature of Prakriti. Out of certain basic attributes, you can combine or create attributes which are exactly opposite to that. So that is what this analogy is saying, that the creation process can bring seemingly conflicting things or opposing things out of itself. So not only trees, but rocks, stones, and other inanimate objects can also emanate out of Brahman, because Brahman is the Sat. That is the Satta. So all Asat can also come out of it. All, I mean, insentient jada padarthas can also come out of it. So that is what this analogy is telling us. So essentially, all the three analogies put together give us certain principles of governing principles of how creation happens. You find in some broad attributes or axioms or whatever you want to say. They are all available in this particular mantra. So in other words, what is this mantra saying? This mantra is saying that Brahman can create and destroy. That is what it is. It can create and it can destroy. And from its own source, it doesn't need a secondary source. Brahman uses its own source and it creates and destroys. Now, this create from its own source is also very important for us to understand, because modern science, what is it saying? It is saying law of conservation of matter, law of conservation of energy. So what is it saying? It's saying nothing can be created. There is nothing like creating. The wood is there, the wood actually becomes a chair. So, this creation is a narrow term. Creation we are using just to explain a certain thing. It is not creating something ab initio. It is not creating something non-existent. It is only bringing something which is in a particular state to another state. The cotton which is in the plant becomes a shirt. So creating a shirt does not mean, you're looking for material. Material is all part of the system. The material only transforms from one manifestation or an unmanifested state to another state of manifestation. So the source is all single. That is what the law of conservation of matter is telling. Law of conservation of matter is saying don't do Mayajal and create something from nowhere. It's all, there. And then in energy also we say that the potential energy becomes kinetic energy, it becomes, heat energy, it becomes, gravitational energy, whatever. Gravitational is a force, not an energy anyway. So, you can get into different energies. They are all in one form and goes to another form. So that is a creation. So Brahman is not looking for a secondary source. Everything is all there. It is only transforming. So that's what I call it as a law of conservation of divinity. Divinity is always there. It can neither be created nor be destroyed. It only keeps manifesting and unmanifesting. So when we use the word create and destroys, creates and destroys here, we are using it in a narrow sense that we need to understand. We are using it in a narrow sense. What we mean by that is When you say create, that means from a state of unmanifestation, it becomes manifesting. The gold is a the ornament in the form of a gold is unmanifested. Moment it becomes an ornament, it becomes manifested. So that is what it means, creation. And destroying means what? The ornament is melted, it loses its manifestation and goes back to unmanifestation. So that is the limited meaning of the word create and destroy. It's not that something is thrown out and is no longer existing when you say destroy. Or it doesn't mean something never existed, suddenly came from nowhere, something ab initio. That is not the meaning of create. So therefore, Brahman creates and destroys from its own source. Brahman can create multiple things, and multiple things like this, Prithvivyam Oshadeya, that's what it is saying, can create a variety of things out of itself. And it can create very opposing things also. Chit, Jada, everything can be created. I mean, attribute, if you look at attribute wise, they may be a little contrasting each other, but all of them can be created by the Brahman. So these three analogies actually establish these governing principles of the so-called creation process. And that's how this mantra is actually explaining the creation process. So let us now go to the next mantra. But before going into the next mantra, let's also look at this whole creation issue a little bit. See, when we see a very beautiful furniture, suppose there is a very exquisite furniture, which is, you just come to my house and there's a very nice furniture lying on it. And it's so good. Now, nobody asks the question, is there any carpenter at all? Because everybody knows without a carpenter, a furniture does not come. So nobody, it's a foolish question to ask, is there a carpenter? Nobody asks that question. However, there are three questions which we can ask. One is, where is this carpenter? Who is this person? He looks so good. In fact, many times we say, who is this person? Can you give me his number? I would also like to make a furniture like this. So we always ask, can you tell me who is this person? Then there is this, if it is so beautiful, how did he get this knowledge? So good. There is something which is very unique about him. When you see a painting, when you see a nice structure which is being an architect creating a nice structure, all that are similar. Then we may also be inquisitive about what kind of material did he use. Did he use teak? Did he use some other thing? And what is this? So these are some of the questions we generally ask when we see something which is beautifully created. Created in the narrow sense. Please understand. Created means from one form it is manifesting into another form. That's why we have to understand. So these three questions quite often come to us, right? And so in other words, what we are saying is whenever we talk of this creation, then there are three things involved here. One is the creator, which is the carpenter part. And second is the know-how. How did he get this knowledge? And that's the second part. And third is the raw material. And as we already saw, the raw material is the upadana karana, and the creator and the know-how are the nimitta karana. That's the instrumental or the intelligent or the efficient cause, whichever way you want to call it. So that's why I have color coded them with the same color, the creator and the know-how. Now, if you ask what is this know-how, I mean, one can ask this question not just in the context of spiritual discussion that we do here. In a company, they come up with a new product or a new kind of an idea, new process. Question is, how did we get this know-how? And there is a way by which we get this know-how. Doesn't come just like that, doesn't come sporadically and so on. There is a particular way by which one gets the know-how. Now, I will use one mantra from Lalita Sahasranama, which will explain this so beautifully. So there is one mantra in Lalita Sahasranama which says, Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti Swarupinyai Namaha. So that is one mantra. So there are three things here: Ichcha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. Now, these three have a strict chronological order also. You can't, say it in any other order. That's why I put arrows to show it. See, the know-how comes in a three-stage process. First, we should have a desire. I mean, even if I want to, let us say, design this cell phone, okay, or this spectacle which I am wearing, the first thing that I need is I should have a desire that I want to, that is what a startup and an entrepreneur brings to the table. That's the most important thing he brings to the table, actually. So the question is, first I should have a desire to do something new, something interesting, and so on. Then I should somehow get the knowledge of how to do it. Maybe if it is so new, I'll have to develop it. That's what R&D and things are all about. We do a lot of experiment, whatever, and then finally try to understand, oh, this is how this must be made. So there is a Jnana Shakti. Then we need a Kriya Shakti. Because the Jnana, the Ichcha is a desire, Jnana is an idea. The idea has to get into reality. And in order to convert the idea into reality, you need Kriya Shakti. We should know an executional angle of the idea. So those three together, Ichcha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti, is what I call it as know-how. In fact, that's how the know-how comes. Even if you take some of the contemporary examples, we'll find that is how the know-how comes. And so, which means any creation, and if you are talking about a small creation like this, the creation of the entire universe also needs this kind of a thing. So now Mundakopanishad Upanishad, what it does is, it tries to show some facets of this process of how this whole thing happens. So before we look at it, we will try to go back to Taitri Upanishad, which we have seen, and sorry, and see how it talks about some of these things. So in Taitri Upanishad, Brahmananda Valli, we saw this. So kamayata bahusyam prajayeti satapo tapyata satapas taptva idagum sarvam asrijata edidam kancha edidam kincha. So kamayata, Ichcha Shakti, that is the Ichcha Shakti. So kamayata, so it desired. And what is that? Bahusyam prajayeti. Let me become many. I'm alone, so let me become many. How did you get the Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti? Satapo tapyata. The Brahman did deep tapas. Satapas taptva, having done the tapas, idagam sarvam asrijata. So now there is a Ichcha Shakti, there is the Jnana Shakti and the Kriya Shakti which came through tapas. And so idagam sarvam asrijata. Material is his own, so he can bring the material because upadana karana is the same as the nimitta karana. So that is what this mantra is saying. Then in the same mantra it continues. Then it says Tadeva nupravishat tadanupravishya satchatyacha bhavat niruktancha niruktancha nilayanancha nilayanancha vijnanancha vijnanancha satyancha nritancha satyam abhavat edidam kincha tat satyamitya chakshate tadapyesha shloko bhavati. So in Taitri Upanishad, this is how it is describing. It says it entered into everything. Sat, Tyat, everything it became. So the Sat is what which is manifested. Tyat is that which is not yet manifested, but it can manifest later, as I just now gave you example. So it got into a potential form and the actual form. This unmanifested is a potential form. The seed is the potential form for a tree, correct? The gold is the potential form for a necklace. So from a necklace perspective, gold is tyach, na sat. So satcha tyacha abhavat, niruktam cha aniruktam, that which can be defined, which can be established and not established. Nilayanam cha anilayanam, which is stationed or housed or not housed. Vijnanam cha vijnanam, truth and ignorance, everything. Satyam cha anritam cha. Satya and anrita. All these happen. So this is how Taitri Upanishad, in its own way, it came with this kind of an understanding. So now let us see how Mundakopanishad actually got into this idea. So we'll go to the next mantra, and the mantra says, Tapasa chiyate brahma tato namabhijayate annat prano manas satyam loka karma suchamrutam. So let us see first the padacheda of this shloka. This is fairly a simple shloka from a padacheda perspective. Tapasa chiyate brahma tataha annam abhijayate annat pranaha manaha satyam lokaha karmasu cha amrutam. So what is it saying? Tapasa. In Taitri Upanishad it said satapo tapyata. Here also it says tapasa. By tapas. By tapas. Brahmaha chiyate. Chiyate is one which which enlarges, floats, or swells, or becomes more and big of it, like that. So chiyate. Through tapas, Brahma chiyate. Thickening, all that is all that. Okay. Tataha, from there, thereafter, from there, annam abhijayate. Out of that and after this process, annam came. That's what the first line says. Second line says annat, from annam, prana, the prana came, manaha, manas came, satyam came, lokaha, so the lokaha came, karmasu, actually karmaha, it is in saptami bahuvachanam, karmasu cha amritam. Now this is so there are 8 things here which we will see, but this is a classic example for why somebody should not simply read all these scriptures, just keeping a dictionary by the side and then seeing this translation and so on, because all these terms here have a different meaning. Annam is, we normally understand annam as food, but here it has a different meaning. Prana has a slightly different meaning here. Manas has a different meaning. Satyam has a different meaning. We say Satyam is truth. Here Satyam has a different meaning. Okay, although that's how they may sometimes translate it. So you get nothing out of such translation. That's why it is important that somewhere we should have one round of an initial exposition from someone who can explain it a little bit to us. And if that person has to explain, he has to go to Bhashyas and read. Only then he or she also will know. So I think from an informed person, it is important we hear all these. Then if we read, there is a chance we will not miss it that easily. So anyway, what is happening here is there are 8 things which are in sequence here. Actually, I want you to understand that. First is the tapas. That is the first thing here. Tapasa chiyate. Tapas. Then tataha, from tapas, annam. So from tapas, the second stage of this creation process is annam. Annat, that's the second line. Annat pranaha. So the third stage is out of annam prana came. Then manas came. Then satyam came. Then loka. Then karma. Then amritam. So there are 8 things which are explained here. So in a way, this mantra has described the krama of the srishti. What is the order in which this srishti is happening? Now, in the earlier mantra, please remember, the earlier mantra, we only established certain cardinal principles. And what are those cardinal principles? Brahman can be the nimitta karana and upadana karana. He has all the material and intelligence, everything. Then Brahman can create and destroy, meaning can manifest and unmanifest. Then all that we established in the previous mantra. So those are governing principles. Here in this mantra, it says, while not violating those governing principles, how this whole process is happening. So this Upanishad has taken a different way of explaining it. So let us look at all these 8 one after the other carefully. So this is what it is. Tapas, out of tapas came annam, then out of annam came pranaha, then manas came, then satyam, then lokaha, then karmaha, then amritam. So this is a sequential 8-step process which this mantra is actually suggesting. So let us look at these 8 stages. And as I told you, all these words, you cannot take a dictionary and then make sense of it, because they are used in a very specific, it is a technical description of a creation process. So in a way, they are like a jargon. In a way, the meaning of that word is very contextual. And unless we understand the meaning in that contextual sense, we may not understand what is being described. But Upanishads are aplenty like this. Unless somebody interprets and properly writes a bhashya, which Shankaracharya did, and we are all relying on that bhashya to understand what is intended, the meaning of these words and so on. So that is how it happens. So we will see these 8 tattvas, 8 steps. The first one is tapas. What is tapas? Tapas is nothing but a strong concentration and a will. See, if you have to create something, you need tapas. You have to be constantly thinking about it. I mean, this is what good entrepreneurs, when they do a startup 24/7, they do only this. That's the tapas. It is a chitta ekagrata, means our concentration is focused on something. And in this context, the tapas is the contemplation of the form of the universe to be created. It is not an R&D for making a spectacle or a camera or a small little thing. We are talking about a massive universe with galaxies and Milky Ways and thousands and billions of stars and solar systems and whatnot. So quite a huge process. So it's a deep contemplation of the form of the universe to be created. And Brahman contemplated for, I don't remember the duration, it's available, and, I don't know, 100 years or something. He contemplated before he, could think of what is to be done. So this is the starting point. The starting point of that Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti comes from tapas. Yes, deep concentration with a strong will to create. So, somebody wants to do a drawing, a painter wants to do a painting. It precedes us long hours. It may not be years, but long hours of thinking of what you want to create, and develop that thought in so many ways before it finally, Even he takes the first brush and puts the first dot. Same thing happens if an author writes a book. There is a long process of thinking what should be this book, what should it look like, what should be the structure of all that, how should, that's why, you have to write a book. I always say that, if I write a book, I take 6 months, 3 to 6 months to get only a chapter outline. And you need that much of time. That is the most important part. The rest are all mechanical thing of, finding out how to fill that. So I try to get the chapters. I go to 3 levels. 1, 1.1, 1.1.1 if required. That kind of thinking is required to write a book, as an example I'm telling. So if these small little things require that, then expectedly the creation of the universe also requires it, because that seems to be the process. So that is why it says, and tapasa chiyate. Chiyate, when he becomes swells or bulges, or what it means is the thought is adding and adding and adding, and then this very creation is now become very potent. This person has become much bigger in his existence, because this entire creation is within that person now. That potentiality has been created. So that is why tapasa chiyate Brahma. That is the first mantra, first part. Then it says annam. So annam is, we say annam is food. But in the creation literature, in this context, annam is not food. Annam is the material content of the consciousness. The consciousness must get into a material form. It should become a matter. That is that upadana part of it in some ways. The material cause of it has to happen. So the material content of the consciousness, it is actually the matter of all the creation, Mula Prakriti. You will see, these descriptions in chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita. It says how Sacharacharam, Chara and Achara, how do I, Maya Adhyakshena, Suriyate Sacharacharam, there are slokas, there. You look at the first 10 slokas of chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita, this is available there in a different way. So, Annam actually means the matter of all creation, maybe Mula Prakriti. So that idea, these are all in the potential ideas, and they are all ready to spurt out. So, there are so many things which are used to describe this Annam in a context of the creation process. It is avidya kalpitam. It is bhuta sukshmam ishvara ashrayam. So, it is the universe in the subtle form, in the thought process, and it is ready. Everything is in a subtle form. It is yet to come out. The tree is in a subtle form in the seed, just ready to sprout. If you are able to put it on a ground and properly plant it, it will start, the first bud and 2 leaves will come. The stage before that is the Annam. It's all potential Bhuta Sukshmam. It is the Bhuta is in a Sukshma form. The tree is not to be found. It is in a Sukshma form in that seed. Right? So Bhuta Sukshmam Ishwaram Ashrayam. Everything is, from there. It's the Bijam. It's the cosmic seed. That's why it said Sarva Bhuta Yoni. In one of the mantras we saw, the 6th mantra we saw. Sarva Bhuta Yoni. That was the description of the Swarupa Lakshana of Brahman was given. So it is the Bija. It's also called Maya. These whole signs with which this creation process is called Avidya, Kalpita and Maya. These are the words used to describe this equivalent of the Annam that we are talking about. And it is Avyaktam. It is not yet out, but it is there. It is fully available, pregnant, ready. Because the tapas has got all the ideas waiting to just spit out, kind of a thing, right? So that is the Annam. Then it says prana, pranaha. Now, so the idea is that now it has to get into an execution, you need an agency. it needs to get into an execution plane now. So the prana is nothing but this whole idea must get into an energy form. It should get energized and it should be able to come out. So that first thing is Hiranyagarbha. That's why there is one Hiranyagarbha Sukta. It says Hiranyagarbha Samavartatakre Bhutasya Jata Patireka Asit Sada Dyava Prativim Dyatume Mam Tasmai. I'm just missing of it. So that is what it is. It says Bhutasya Jataha Patireva Asit. So that is the Hiranyagarbha. It is Brahmanasya, it is the Jnana Kriya Shakti. The potential idea has to get into an executional action plane for which you need some agency for the Jnana and Kriya Shakti. So the Jnana and Kriya Shakti is resident on this Hiranyagarbha, who is called the Prana. Who is that? Actually, the energy which is going to get manifested through the Annam. It is going to get manifested through the Annam. That's why in all these it says Bhuta Samudayasya. Look at that. These are all the Shankara Bhashyas. Bhuta Samudayasya Bijam Avyakritam Tat Anguraha Hiranyagarbha. So it is like that seed which has all the energy and waiting to just come out. So that is what it is. Bijam Avyakritam Tat Anguraha. That ability to sprout. Ability for the seed to just shoot out. That is called Hiranyagarbha and that is called Prana. So it is the cosmic Prana. When you say Prana, it is cosmic Prana. When you say Annam, it is cosmic Annam. Tapas is also cosmic Tapas. So all these are at a different plane. Then everything has to get out now. All these are waiting to sort of come out. So you need a medium through which it comes out, and that is the cosmic Manas. Okay, so that is the what is called Virat Swarupa. The Virat Swarupa actually starts coming out. That's why, you know, at another level, Annam is also called Virat. All those are only manifesting at a different stage. Tasmad Virat Ajayata. That's what it says in Purusha Sukta. From that, Virat Ajayata. You know, Purusha Sukta talks about this creation process in its own way. So it is called Virat Swarupa. It comes out of the Hiranyagarbha. So out of that pregnant idea, which became a pregnant energy, and then it shooted, it shot, it sprouted in the form of Virat Swarupa. And in other words, why was it possible? Because Sankalpa, Vikalpa, Samshaya, Nirnaya, Adhyatmakam. All these are required to bring the desire out. You need Sankalpa, Vikalpas, you need Samshaya, Nirnaya. All these are required. So all those are part of the Virat, so that it is now provided a medium through which the whole thing comes out. So now you have enabled everything for it to get out. So far it is only thought. Thought is enriched. Idea is obtained. The material which is required is all pregnant. The energy required is also fully pregnant and ready to come. And the desire part, the medium through which it has to come out, is also now available in the form of Virat Swarupa. So Mula Prakriti, Hiranyagarbha and Virat Swarupa are there. So now everything about the process is ready. So it can happen now. So this is the first half of the story. First four talks about the first half of the creation story, where things are all understood, figured out, everything is done. It's all ready to be out. So we see equivalent of these, all these you see in Taitri Upanishad. For example, look at here. This comes in Bhriguvalli in Taitri Upanishad. Tapasa Brahma Vijijñāsasva Tapo Brahmheti says tapas is Brahman. So one can make the same argument there. Annam Brahmheti Vyajanat Annadyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante annena jatani jivanti. And that's what it is. So that is this annam. There we gave a slightly narrow view when we discussed the Taitri Upanishad. In that context, that was sufficient. Whereas in this context, we should understand annam brahmeti vyajanat. So the Brahman now became annam. First he became tapas, then he became annam. Then what did he say? Prano brahmeti vyajanat. Pranadyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante. Pranena jatani jivanti. That's what it says. So the Brahman became prana. The correct explanation is available in Mundakopanishad. There we put a slightly different explanation because in that context we wanted to understand it that way. So prano brahmeti vyajanat. Then it says mano brahmeti vyajanat. Manasadyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante. So now manas is Brahman. What has happened? Brahman became tapas. Brahman becomes annam. Brahman becomes prana, and Brahman became manas. That is what Taitri Upanishad is also saying. He's saying in a different context, so we understood it from a different lens, in a different way. But this mantra is actually saying these are the preamble for the creation process to really happen the way it has to happen. So now everything is ready, things can come out now. So that is what the next thing. Then comes Satyam. Now Satyam is not truth. Satyam is truth. That is the normal meaning which we understand. I mean, what you see here is also a greater truth actually. So that way it is okay. Satyam is in the context of the creation process. It is the order and law of the universe, the governing principles. For example, fire has to heat, water has to have sapidity, air has to move. There are all governing principles for everything. And all these governing principles are required to create, otherwise it will become chaos. So, and they are eternally, infallible. So it is Satyam. So order and law of the universe creating the Panchabhutas and the governing principle for everything to operate. If you heat, the water has to vaporize. If you cool, the water has to condense. All these are basic principles which are all put in place. So out of all these comes out a technical definition Shankaracharya gives in his Bhashya for Satyam is Bhuta Panchakasya Satyamiti Nama. So he says the Panchabhutas which came out of all that, the preamble that we saw, it's all ready and then it is ready to spit out. The Pancha Mahabhutas that came out, which is the basic material required for creation. That is the Maha, Apadana, Karana. So that comes out. So creating the Panchabhutas, the governing principle for everything to operate. Panchabhutakasya Satyam iti nama. That is, so na Satyam, definition of Satyam is Bhuta Panchakam, Panchabhutam. That's what it means. That's why in Taitri Upanishad, I put it again, this is in Taitri Upanishad, just now we saw Satyancha Nritancha Satyam Abhavat Tat Satyamitya Chakshate. This is understood as Satyam. And that is all this rhythm and the cosmic order, everything is in place. But immediately after this mantra, you will see Bishas Madhvata Pavate, Bishode Surya, Mrityurdavati Panchamiti. It gives examples. The sun will start from the east and go to the west, and air will blow like this. Mrityurdavati Panchamayiti. So all these five fellows will work and they are afraid of this larger concept called Brahman. I mean, in a very figurative sense, it is saying in that mantra, what it means is they all are fitting to a certain strict law and rhythm of governance. So that is called Satyam. Things have, when Panchabhutas come, things have started coming out. Well, everything is manufactured out of Panchabhutas only. If you look at the Sankhya, you will understand this. From the Mahat, how the Pancha Mahabhutas came and then Pancha Tanmatras, All that you will find in Sankhya philosophy. This is explained in a more detailed, in a particular way, and so on. So now that the Panchabhutas are there, one can, so the Brahman can now create the world of materiality, and also, the Hiranyagarbha brings the Chit, Mula Prakriti brings the Annam, which is the, the Sat of it. Sat and Chit and Ananda will all get into everything. So in the Taitri Upanishad, it said, Tadevanu Pravishati, figuratively said, I entered into it. Here it says how I descended down. It gives a different way of explaining. So 7 worlds, some people say 14 worlds also, but Adi Shankara in his Bhashya uses only Saptaloka, the Bhashya I have given here. So out of the Panchabhutas, the world is created. That's the word Lokaha. Tasmat. Tasmat means Satyat, because it is coming from the previous one. So Tasmat, Bhuta Panchakat, it is there, Bhuta Panchakat. From these Panchabhutas, Andakramena, Saptalokaha, Bhuradaya, Uhu, Uvaha, Suvaha, Mahaha, Chanaha, Tapaha, Satya. Those are the 7 lokas. Then there are people who add the other 7 also below. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Rasatala, Tala, Tala, Patala, and all those. The 9 plates below. 7 plates below. So 7 worlds or 14 worlds, whatever we want to take, we can take Lokaha. Bhuradaya, Bhuhu Adeha, Bhuradaya. Andakramena. Andakramena is how the egg split into half. All those are available in, I think, Chandogya Upanishad or Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. There are some descriptions of how the Hiranyagarbha as a egg started splitting. Even Puranas do talk about it. If you look at the Bhagavata Purana also, you will find. So that's why there are different ways they try to somehow explain this process, but somehow try to get to us that everything is Brahman particle only. So Lokaha. Then you have karma. Once everything is created and then it enters into it, everybody gets their intelligence, etc., etc. You start acting. You don't keep quiet for a minute, obviously, right? So individuals, all entities arise out of the Panchabhutas. So it manufactures this world of what we see today. Because all enabling mechanisms are available for acts, and also it makes all enabling mechanisms available for actions to take place. It's all available for us. So Manushyadi Prani Varnashramakramena Karmani. So everybody is in place, so the show can start now. Each one of us have our own mind, our own gunas, our own vasanas which we brought. So we start. Right from the time we are born, we become active. Until we die, we become active. And so we keep doing all kinds of things. So that will start once we are all created and we came into the system and so on. So individuals arise out of the Panchabhutas, all enabling mechanisms for actions to take place. So that is what the mantra is saying. Then it says, Amritam. Now, the word Amritam is the most misleading word. Satyam and Amritam are the real misleading words in these others. Somehow we can catch the meaning. Amritam means fruits of action. Fruits of action begin to accrue. Now, why do you call the results or fruits of action as Amritam? Because Amritam is immortal. Now, Shankaracharya gives a very beautiful explanation of why there's nothing wrong in calling it as Amritam. What he says is, Yavat karmani kalpakoti shatairapi na vinashyanti. See, whatever omissions and commissions, this is very important for us to understand. It's part of Sanatana Dharma. Anything that we do and which we keep doing anyway every moment, right? Kalpakoti shatairapi. Koti is 10 power 7. Shata is 100. So 10 power 9 kalpas. One kalpa itself is some 10 power 17 human years or something. So you now add another 10 power 9. That is the example Shankaracharya gives. He says, Yavat karmani kalpakoti shatairapi na vinashyanti. Our actions will not simply, go away. Tavat palam na vinashyanti. We are responsible for what we are doing. The actions that we do manifest in terms of karma. That's why we say prarabdha karma, agami karma, all that, different types of karma we talk about. So that is what it is. So tavat palam na vinashyanti. The karma pala we have to. So if something can stay for shatakoti kalpa, you can practically call it as immortal. So that is the interpretation that Shankaracharya gives of the meaning, Amritam. So we very quickly saw this 8-step process by which this mantra is explaining how the creation took place. I think it's 6 o'clock. We will stop here and continue in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shubharatri.